Clash has been one of my favorite movies at the BIFFYs this year, and it's about the story where there are two opposite groups of protesters arrested by the police. It's their struggle of how they will find balance inside this police van that they are locked inside.
Right. It's directed by Mohammed Diab, a writer director from Egypt. I think he rose to fame with his debut film Cairo 678, and he also wrote the highest grossing movie, The Island, Fall of Egypt.
Clash has won a couple of awards and nominations. Best editing at Carthage Film Festival.
Best cinematography at Cannes, and its official entry to Oscars
for foreign language
Egypt,
film, right?
The story of Clash is pretty much, they take two clashing groups of Egypt, one who supports the Muslim Brotherhood and the other who do not, and they put them in a police van. So the story follows about what happens in the police van, how these two groups clash, how they resolve their issues, how they live, and this is all about a day in the protest life.
I think the story had well-established characters,
Right.
and all these characters together, formed the protagonist and the antagonist. So you had all elements of the story, but the personalities were split by
Right.
time and by different people.
Like when I watch a movie, I usually find myself in some character. And for 5 minutes I was with this character. I saw myself in him, I saw myself there. It was like as if my brain was going in a conflict. And my brain was, all the things in my brain were clashing. So talking about that, I also feel that the confinement they put them into, that whole police van, it represented a person's head. Like how there are clashing ideologies in his head, how people try to come one over the other.
It is also a representation of different kinds of people, different groups of people, different kinds of thinking, and then taking a sample out of this whole population, and then adding all these elements into a small group of people so that we can relate to the characters.
So at BIFFYs, we're seeing a lot of movies that have been confined to a small space plots. But this movie, for some reason, though it was confined to a small space thing, I personally didn't feel he cut on budget or he compromised on something. Like, what happened outdoors?
I think, as you're saying, there was no compromise on the story. Whatever the story had to communicate, wherever there was a scene that you needed to see through a window, through a grill, or a protest outside, they were all shown.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't find any place where the director felt that he needed to cheat a little bit and so he'll show a close-up of something.
The cinematography was just right in place. In such a small confined space, he had camera movement. The lighting was right on spot. There were no blown out highlights.
The angles were never awkward. You could always
yes.
relate to the camera angle.
Yes. I really want to, if I could figure out, I'd really like to ask him how many days did he shoot this movie over, or did he, we have this query, right? Did he cut the truck? Was it shot in parts? You can't shoot on a wide lens. You'll have to use some minimum tele to get people right in proportions. If not, everybody look blotted. Talking about blotted, I really like the blotted character in the movie, where he pulls jokes on himself. To make fun of oneself is a whole different thing. And he gave very good dry humor to the film. It had all emotions, right, we're talking about in this film. And I think the humor was there, the tragedy was there, the suspense was there, the drama was there. Also, I think that the director Mohammed Diab, he directed them pretty well. Like the cops, the people usually when they're directing the people in service, like the cops or the militants and all that, they don't do a very natural job. It's a very big giveaway. But this movie, it was totally convincing that they seem like pretty real cops. At one point, I even felt whether he used some file footage, whether it's a documentary that he shot first and used that footage into this film. But then I was convinced that's not the case. The actors, I think they had a stellar performance.
All excellent actors. Not one was out of character.
Right.
For a second, you're convinced by everybody's actions, reactions, and in such a confined space with so many characters, all of them need to act at the same time.
Right.
So it was not like one person stands up, he gives his performance, and other people are chilling out.
Right.
And the continuity also was so flawless.
Yes.
And they were all interesting characters that you could relate to and you'd remember. They were not characters that were that were so strange and alien that you can't connect with them.
I personally walked away with a clash in my head. Whose side am I on now?
Right. So other than the conflict, I also thought about it as on a macro level, that we've got so many different people and how society works, and with conditions like that, of how dysfunctional we can be as a society.
I also like Mohammed Diab's approach to it, like where he's taken a bigger problem and he's shown one day of that bigger problem, but it communicates everything. Like we've known what's happened. We're sitting in India and we're watching about an Egyptian problem. We know that culture. We know what happened there. We're just looking at one day situation.